Hey there, I'm Sam, I'm a graphic designer, and today we're going to talk about the differences between hue, saturation, and luminosity. The reason that I'm making this video is because I think that the word color can be really generic, and it's hard to know what someone means when they just say like green or yellow. I really want to help the design community have a better understanding of how to accurately describe color and, more importantly, better understand how to use the color spectrum. Because once you really master using the color spectrum, your color palettes are going to be much, much better. So let's dive in. So we're going to get started with some basic terminology. These are like your color palette vocab words. The first word we're going to talk about is hue. This is a very important word. A hue literally means the actual pure form of the color. So this can be very simple, like red or yellow or green. I like to describe hue as sort of like the Roy G. Biv version. So like, how would you describe the color to a 5-year-old? That's what the hue is. Now you can describe hue generically, or you can specify it a little bit. Now you're not going to get too specific with a hue, but what I like to use to describe hue is the base color, meaning like red, orange, green, blue, or by its temperature. So pink. Pink can lean a little bit more towards purple being cool or more towards red being warm. So you could say a warm pink or a cool pink, or you can describe it by its nearest neighbor. Like an example is if I say that I'm referring to the color green, you might not know exactly what I mean because green can be anything within this range. So that's a pretty wide bit of the spectrum. But if I say I want a blue-green, then you know that my hue is going to be somewhere in there. So by describing color with its nearest neighbor or by its temperature, you can specify where it is in the spectrum just a little bit more. It's not necessary, but it's good to know. Likewise, if I say I'm referring to pink, that could be anything here. But if I say I'm referring to a warm pink, that's going to be something in here between pink and red. Now, the next word we're going to talk about is saturation. Saturation is the overall intensity or power of a hue. So you can see in this bar here, we've got a low saturation part of the color over here and a high saturation version over here. Now, these are not necessarily binary, like you aren't either low saturation or high saturation. There's a whole spectrum along the way, but these are the two extremes. The next word we're going to talk about is luminosity. Luminosity is the measure of how light or dark a hue is. So this is an example. We've got a light version of a hue over here, this like brightish lavender color, and then we've got the darker version over here, this darker, more gray lavender. Now here's how to understand the differences between hue, saturation, and luminosity. Hue is how you would tell the difference between an unripe banana and a ripe banana. So an unripe banana is probably going to look a lot more green, and a ripe banana is going to look more yellow. There's really no differences in the saturation levels or the luminosity. It's really just they're different hues. Now you can tell the difference in saturation levels by buying grapefruits at different times of the year. I used to buy a ton of grapefruits, and certain times of the year I would get like really pale light pink grapefruits on the inside, and other times of the year when I would cut it open it would be like this bright, vibrant, juicy red grapefruit. So that is how you tell saturation. It starts off with the same hue, but a more saturated version is going to be a lot brighter, a lot juicier, more bold. Finally, luminosity explains why black coffee looks different than coffee with a little oat milk or cream in it. They're still the same color base, but if we add something that will lighten a color like cream, it's going to be that same hue, but a little bit lighter. Okay, now I want to break down the different types of spectrums that you'll often see as a designer. I did a lot of research to try to find like what these exact spectrums were called, and I honestly could not find like a main definition. So here are the terms that I use, and I'll be using them throughout these videos, so hopefully that makes you feel a little more comfortable with them. So there are two spectrums that you'll see a lot. The first I call the color spectrum. This is where you can view all of the visible colors in their most bright hue form. So this is a slider that you would use to find your hue. And then once you find your hue, you can open up the hue spectrum, which is a full color spectrum that is just dedicated to different versions of that individual hue. Now there are 4 different directions that you can take in the hue spectrum, and I'm going to break these down a little further. But essentially you can go up, you can go down, you can go right, and you can go left. I don't know if my camera will mirror that or not, but it's just up, down, right, and left. I'm going to show you what those 4 directions of the hue spectrum look like using this color. So let's pretend that we're using this hue spectrum of this pink. So if we were to find this in the color spectrum, that's the color we would see. And we're going to start in the middle. So you're going to see this background color change based on which direction in the spectrum I went. First, we're going to make the color lighter. So we're going to go from the middle and we're going to go up to make the color lighter. That means that we're increasing the luminosity. We're adding more white. Next, we're going to go darker. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to add more black and we are going to darken it and give it less luminosity. Next, we're going to go to the right and we're going to make the color brighter. So we're going to make it more saturated. And finally, we're going to go to the left to make the color muted, meaning less saturation. Sometimes I also use the word dusty to describe this direction, but I'm going to try to use muted because I think that's more of like an official word. So here's a visual representation of all these different directions. You can go up, you can go down, you can go right, and you can go left. And you don't have to just choose one. You could go like up and right, or you could kind of like end up somewhere in the middle. But those are the general directions you go in when you play with colors in a hue spectrum. Now, something that I found really helpful is breaking the spectrum up into 9 sections, and I'm going to show you what I mean. You can describe saturation by splitting a hue spectrum into 3 columns. So the far left column is going to be muted, meaning the least amount of saturation, and then in the middle is midtone, and then on the right is bright, meaning more saturation. Likewise, you can describe luminosity by splitting up the hue spectrum into 3 rows. So the top row is going to show you all the light colors, the middle row is going to show you medium, and the bottom row is going to show you dark. So the hue spectrum can be broken down into 9 sections, and in each one of these sections, you can use a word to describe its saturation and its luminosity. So here's what that grid looks like, but I'm actually going to show you what it looks like with colors because I think that's a little bit easier to visualize. So the top row is all light colors, but they bounce between muted, midtone, and bright. Likewise, the middle row shows medium colors, and the bottom row shows dark colors. I think it's really important to visualize this because this is all coming from one hue, and every single hue can be broken up into this 9-section grid. So that means that you can define any color with just a few words. So first, you want to describe the hue, meaning what's the approximate color? Are we working with something that's red, that's pink, that's green, that's aqua, you name it. Then we want to describe the luminosity, meaning is it light, is it medium, or is it dark? And then finally, we want to describe the saturation, meaning is it muted, is it midtone, or is it bright? And we're going to have some fun examples to play with. So if I were to describe a color as a light, bright lime green, think for a second about where in the color spectrum that would be and where in that hue spectrum it would be. Here's your answer. If I were to describe a light, bright lime green, that means that we're going to end up somewhere in this lime range over here in this green, a little bit more towards yellow than towards blue. And then if we were to split this hue spectrum into 9 sections, we want to go light and bright, which is somewhere in this top right corner. Now this could be anywhere in this top right corner. I just picked a spot to show for this demonstration, but you know that if I say a light, bright lime green, we're not going to be over here. Okay, now if I were to describe a color as a light muted indigo, where would that be? It would look something like this. So again, we want to find the hue first. So we're going to start with the color spectrum, and I landed somewhere between blue and purple, which is a very fine line. Sometimes it's hard to see on a screen, but this is where I decided to end up. And I think you could have like 10% leeway either way, and you would still be fine. And we're going for a light muted indigo. So I knew that I wanted to be, if I were to split this into 9 sections, in the top left section. Isn't color so much fun? I really believe that once you better understand the color spectrum and how colors relate to one another in that spectrum, your color palettes are going to feel so much more balanced and they're going to be easier and more fun to create. And if you want some help creating color palettes, I made a tool designed to help you create beautiful, accessible, ready-to-use color palettes in less than a minute. The tool is called the Color Palette Builder, and this is an easy tool to create perfect, ready-to-use color palettes in less than a minute. So the way the tool works is that there are all these different design styles that you can scroll through. So you can view the different mood boards, the general aesthetics, the fonts, the color styles of each design style. And then you can scroll down and you're going to see a color palette formula that you can use to build a palette that matches that style. So for bright and warm, I'm just going to click the colors according to the formula. So I'm going to choose 2 beige colors. I'm going to choose 2 light colors. And then I'm going to choose some bright colors. Now I can follow anything in this formula. So if I want to like delete a color, I can just unclick it, and it's really, really easy to edit. And then finally, I want to choose a dark color. And this is where we have accessibility built into the tool. Now, next, I want to maybe name these colors, have them be something fun other than like beige or pink. So I can click this button here, and it's going to use AI to name each one of my colors. I can also add in a custom theme. So if this is for like a child's birthday party planner or for a coffee shop, I can have the names customized based on the theme of the business. Then I can click Test All Pairings, and I can view all of the background and text combos, which is the color palette tester, one of my favorite tools. But I can also click Show Compliant Pairings, and I will get to view all of the high contrast pairings, meaning they have a contrast score of 4.5 or higher and are actually usable on a brand website or marketing materials. I'm going to click Select All, and if there are any color combos that I don't like, I'll just deselect them. So like maybe I don't like that one. I don't really like that one, but I like all the rest. Then I can click Show Palette, and I can view the full brand color palette, and I can view the approved color combos. And what's great is it's going to show me the background hex code, the text hex code, and it's going to give me the contrast score. As a designer, I found that this is really helpful when I'm communicating these decisions to clients to actually have the contrast score to show them. Then finally, I can click Generate URL and save this as a URL for later, so I can reference this later if I want to maybe present a few options to a client or have an editable version. And if I want to send this to a client right away, I can just export it as a PDF. I really do love creating color palette tools and resources for this community. So if there's something you want me to make a video about, or if you have any questions about color palettes, please drop them below. And it would mean so much to me if you would like and subscribe. I am so excited to create more for this community in 2024, and I'm glad you're here.